Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. The National Pork Board initiated the production benchmarking analysis back in 2017 with the goal of making data publicly available for pork producers to use when assessing productivity in various phases of their operation. This is information that's intended to benefit all producers through improved farm productivity. So, joining us today to share the most recent data for 2021, along with a look back and how it compares to past industry data, are Chris Hostetler of the National Pork Board and Brad Eckburg of MetaFarms. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for
Hello,
having
Sarah.
us.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, Chris, I think we've got some slides here, so I'm going to let you take over, and I mean, you can give us some background and perspective on the summary, on the analysis, and what it means for the U.S. pork industry. How did it come to be? All of that background kind of stuff, and then I think you guys are going to jump into what the numbers show and what we can learn from them.
Sure. While Brad's pulling up those slides, I will just give you a little bit of background on the effort that we are currently in. So in 2019, we approached MetaFarms. We were already working with them on a number of other projects and a number of other fronts. And we approached them to use some of their customer data to aggregate that and get national averages for the purpose of benchmarking production, key productivity indicators for our producers. And so it's been a great relationship working with them over the last 3 years. We have data in this data set that goes back to 2017, so 5 years worth of data. And really the purpose, as you said, ultimate purpose is to allow pork producers to recognize those areas where they're really doing well, and then to also acknowledge and work on those areas where they need to put a little more resources or emphasize a little more in their production to improve their profitability. However, this resource is available for a variety of different audiences, including ag extension educators, ag educators that are talking about pork production, our allied industry folks, genetics companies, feed companies, really anybody that would be interested in having access to various data around our key productivity indicators for the sow farm, nursery, wean to finish, and finishing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brad to sort of walk us through the data and the highlights for this year's report.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And we really appreciate here at MetaFarms the relationship that we have with the pork checkoff, and appreciate the time here. So just a little bit of background just for myself. So I'm kind of a slat level type guy is kind of my background. So I spent 7 years on the grow finish side. Before that, worked in sow farms for 8 years, grew up in southern Minnesota. So kind of came to MetaFarms about 8 years ago with that pig experience to not only help the MetaFarms team here, but also to help our customers so I can relate really well. So a lot of kind of the analysis that I'll kind of bring is that, real world, I've been there, done that, a lot of different experiences in pig barns over the years. I still visit quite a few sow farms, grow finish barns with our customers. With that, we'll kind of dig into a little bit of the information. So like Chris said, the information is from 2017 to 2021, a 5-year analysis. So when you're looking at the information for 2021, it's for the calendar year. With that then, so 1.4 million sows is kind of what makes up the sow information. And everything that you see from the sow and grow finish is out of the MetaFarms egg platform, and it is our U.S. Customers only. And then obviously you can see then there's the 18.8 million pigs started on the nursery, 19.3 million on finish, and 10.6 million for single stock wean to finish barns. And that's kind of important. So the single stock. So if you're, if you're overloading a barn, let's say 150% of capacity, we'll exclude those groups from the data. As we get into the sow side, from a 5-year analysis look here. So a couple things which is really important to know is, first of all, the PWMFY is pigs weaned per mated female per year. And that's kind of the gold standard for benchmarking sow productivity, with whether it's within your own system or across the industry. And not getting too deep into the calculations, but on this one I will. So the pigs weaned per mated female per year is really over that period of time, how many pigs were weaned and what was the average mated inventory. So there's a lot of different calculations that are within the pigs weaned per mated female per year, even within the MetaFarms egg platform. But for this study, we're using, again, the total pigs that were weaned during that period versus your average mated inventory. With when you're looking at that pigs weaned per mated female per year over the 5 years, you can see that we had that steady incline of 2017 to 2019, and then we took that dip in 2020 and 2021. And when you're kind of looking a little bit of like, as I'm digging in the information, why would the differences be? The industry knows when COVID hit in 2020. There was definitely a hit in performance. A lot of management practices had to change as packing plants started to close down temporarily, and we had to adjust as an industry pig production. So as you're looking at that pigs weaned per mated female per year, and then you start diving into the different average yearly averages, you're going to see that our born alive continues to grow as an industry. That's a big credit to the genetic capabilities. It's amazing that a 13.6 born alive. I started 20 some years ago in the pig industry. We were hoping to get 10, 11 pigs. So it's really nice, steady improvement. Unfortunately, when it comes to the premium mortality, that continues to increase as well. And as we're going through these slides today and looking at the numbers, unfortunately, animal loss, whether it's on the sow side, the finishing nursery or piglet side, mortality continues to increase throughout the industry as we battle diseases and other challenges throughout the industry. As you can see there on the bottom, the sow death loss, continues to increase. It did dip a bit from 2020, but even from 2017, 1.5% sow death loss in just 5 years is something that is pretty eye-opening to the industry. Wouldn't you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of work to be done there yet. I think that even this next slide that you show is a little more telling in that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of get into a focus of 2021, we want to take a look at the data and say, well, let's look at it from a percentile basis. So we looked at just 2021 for this visual, and we look at the top 10%, 50% and bottom 10%. And when you look at, well, how many sow farms make up that top 10% within the MetaFarms egg platform, that's about 54 farms. So there's about 543 farms that made up this overall data. So kind of think 54 farms were on the top and bottom end. And as you're looking at the percentile with each one of those KPIs, you're going to note that each KPI is individually placed. So, for example, the pigs weaned per mated female per year for the top 10% at 29.7, those sow farms didn't necessarily have the same averages, the 14.6 born alive, the 6.2 sow death loss, for example. But a lot of those similar characteristics, as you'll see on a later graph, the better performing farms have very similar characteristics of on the good side and poor side, as well as from a performance side. But as Chris noted, just looking from a percentile difference with sow death loss in the graph in the upper right, I mean, the difference between the bottom 10% at 18.1% sow death loss compared to the top 10% at 6.2. I mean, that is it's a huge difference, and a lot of different factors can go into that, from animal husbandry, health is king throughout the industry. So, I mean, if you unfortunately got hit with PRRS, especially the 1441C, you definitely had a big hit in performance.
Yeah, I think that's, if we look at that top bar graph there on the right-hand side, 2021, we see the change from 2017 to 2021 in the top 10%, the best 10%. That change is not really dramatically increased, right? The mortality. However, if you look at the bottom, or the worst 10%, there's a 3% difference there in mortality between those years. So our rate of increase is greater for the bottom 10%. And that really, of course, it drags up the average for the national average in terms of mortality. But the discrepancy, again, a 12 percentage point difference between the best 10% and the bottom 10%, there's a lot of work to be done there. And so we can expect to make a significant amount of progress there as well.
So one of the nice things that we like to do for our customers and for this study is looking at, again, that gold standard of sow farm performance of pigs weaned per mated female per year, and looking in what this graph shows is, for those farms that are greater or equal to 30 pigs weaned per mated female per year, what is their pigs weaned per female farrowed, which would be the gray bar, or what is the pre-wean mortality, which is the orange line with the black dot, and be able to say, are there certain characteristics that those farms have from a performance side that then you can really dive deeper into the analysis of why is that difference. So if we're looking for, let's say, from a health perspective, and I have one farm that is at 30 pigs weaned per mated female per year, but I have another farm at 27 pigs weaned per mated female per year, and there's a lot of similar characteristics. You can start going deeper into, well, how do I get more pigs out the door alive? And this hopefully will help. And then within the complete study, we kind of break down a little bit of the differences and characteristics of those well-performing farms as well. As we get into the nursery or grow finish benchmarking here, so just looking at, again, from the nursery groups, a nursery group is going to be, starting weight of, 12 pounds of 55 pounds on the outweight. The days on feed from an average standpoint is going to be right around that 45 days. Of the MetaFarms closed groups during this period of time, there's right around 10,000 groups, again, right around, I think it was like 19 million pigs started. So there's a large sample size from, producers that are, maybe market 20,000 pigs a year, all the way up to, we've got customers that market over 6 million pigs a year that utilize our platform. And there's about 250 different customers, again, spread out throughout the United States that utilize MetaFarms and represent these numbers here. So as we get a little bit deeper into the numbers, you're going to see, there's a lot of interesting things. Again, from a percentile breakdown, each metric is individually laid out there. And they're independent of each other. What the mortality, looking at those top 10%, there's a lot of groups. There'd be about 1,000 groups that closed out at or below 1% mortality. Obviously the average daily gain, even at 40, let's say if they're even on feed for 54 days, for example, a 150 average daily gain is really impressive. The one thing I would say from as you're looking at data overall is, it's the old garbage in, garbage out. So making sure that as you're looking at your performance and information and your benchmarking, within your own company or from an industry standpoint, and you're looking and you're saying, well, why is my feed conversion off, or why is my average daily gain off? Well, are we weighing those truckloads as they're leaving the nursery? Do we have an accurate out weight? Are we recording all of our deads? Just making sure that the data collection part is accurate and in a timely fashion.
Yeah, again, and I think that discrepancy between the top 10% and bottom 10% in terms of mortality gives us that gold standard benchmark against which we can measure and make progress. I'd also like to bring to attention of the listeners and viewers the feed conversion as we go through these next several slides. So just pay attention to feed conversion. I think amazingly, we have been able to maintain feed conversion over the last 5 years in all phases of production, especially given the health challenges we've had, and as well as dietary changes, ingredient availability, and those sorts of things. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Chris, because again, within the packet itself, the study that is, when you look at from a year-over-year trend throughout the different phases of production, the days on feed continue to increase from an average standpoint. That is because, and you'll see actually, like Chris was saying, that the feed conversion is continued to actually improve, and meanwhile, producers, while keeping those pigs on feed, are maintaining a heavier outweight, whether it's heading to the packer or heading to that finishing barn. So hopping into the finishing, again, from a finishing, just from an attribute of a finishing group, you're talking 50 pounds to 285 pounds would be the typical weight in and weight out averages. Looking at 2021, again, from percentile differences, the average outweight for the top 10% groups, I mean, we're at 300 pigs, and that a lot of that's driven off of from a packer perspective. Where are you selling your pigs? What is that ideal weight range? But there's a lot of closed groups in finishing that are over that 300 pound average. And as you kind of look at from a mortality on a percentile basis, unfortunately, we're 4 years in a row where that bottom 10% or that gray bar on that bottom visual continues to increase. As we hop into the wean to finish, again, wean to finish, single stocked groups is what we're looking at here. Again, the top 10%, we're at 295 from an outweight perspective. 3% wean to finish groups, which from an average standpoint, 147 days for the top 10%. That's pretty impressive mortality percentage. On the flip side, however, the top or the bottom 10% of wean to finish mortality groups continues to increase for 3 years in a row here as well. Again, I've referenced the PRRS and how bad it's been here in the Midwest and Minnesota and Iowa and South Dakota and Nebraska area. It's hit us really hard here, and really, as you kind of break down the month over month mortality analysis, I mean, PRRS really has put a big effect in performance and mortality throughout the industry. So
I guess I would add to that too, if we think about feed conversion, one of the factors that really can affect feed conversion, especially in your finishing and your wean to finish facilities, is mortality, right? Especially those late term mortalities, those mortalities that occur a week or two before going to market. Those are really detrimental in terms of feed conversion, because you put all the feed into the animal, but you don't get anything out of them. And so one of the ways to improve feed conversion, given the same ingredients, is to really work on your mortality.
Yeah, and kind of going back from my past when I was in the production field, and we had a nutritionist come out, and he really gave it to us straight, and was the best way that you guys from a field rep perspective can impact feed conversion is, like Chris was saying, minimize those late term death loss. So finding out why those pigs died. We were having some late term health issues. Was it a leg issue? Were they hopping gates? Really investigating and putting that time into those late term dead loss. Were we losing pigs when we were loading out? Did we need to change the lighting, put some barn lime down? Really focusing on that late term death loss was a big deal. And should go without saying, but out of feed occurrences can really affect not only growth, but from a feed conversion standpoint, from a data perspective, again, making sure that we have accurate in weights coming into that finishing group. Again, from my background, we didn't for a while there, we weren't weighing pigs when they came into a finisher. We would kind of do a guesstimate based on weeks on feed, how much they were. Once we started weighing those pigs, we were having a lot more consistent closeouts, not only in the finishing part, but the nursery part from a performance standpoint.
Yeah, good point.
Chris, you want to kind of bring us home with some take-home points?
Yeah, so just, I would encourage our listeners and our producers to go to the our website, porkcheckoff.org/research, to find more details about this data set that's available to them. But these are some of the take-homes from the presentation for today. Sow death loss continues to be elevated compared to our historic levels. Pre-weaning mortality gap between the top 10% and the bottom 10% continues to be very wide. That can be very telling for us in terms of area that we need to focus on as far as an industry. Nursery finishing and wean to finish, the mortality has been increasing at least the last 3 years. So we're continuing to see an uptick in that trend line. As Brad said, outweights continue to trend upwards as well, while days on feed trends downward, and that's good for feed efficiency and overall throughput. And then wean to finish information here, that the feed conversion is changed little, going from a 2.57 to 2.61 over the period of this particular analysis. And again, I think that's a testament to our genetics and our biosecurity, considering the use of the tools for improving feed efficiency that have been taken out of our tool belt, particularly this past year. I think dietary fat has been removed from most diets simply because it's so expensive. And so that really hurts our feed efficiency when we do that. So thanks, Brad, for running us through the data, and Sarah's back on. So let's talk about it overall.
Very good. Great information. Of course, as we all know, if you can't change, you can't make improvements if you can't measure it. So it all comes down to being able to measure and then compare, and going across 5 years, a great timeline. A couple questions that have come in. Were the genetics the same across these pigs, or what did we look at from a genetic differentiation standpoint?
So pretty much every genetic line is represented here. Obviously we all know there's a lot of different genetic lines out there. Everyone is represented in some fashion throughout the data.
Another question that we have, and I'll let whoever wants to have this one jump in. There's lots of factors between the bottom and the top performers, what your data has shown here. Mm-hmm. They're wondering how big or how small the factor does good biosecurity practices play?
Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, we've stressed biosecurity as an important part of overall herd health, and limiting the amount of disease that the pigs are exposed to is certainly beneficial in terms of improving their productivity. And so for us, I think we would recommend that biosecurity measures be strengthened and improved, and always be at the forefront of our producers' considerations in terms of who comes onto the farm, and how they enter the farm, in terms of showering in and showering out, especially on the south side. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Paul Gieske from Swine Vet Center spoke last week at the MPEIC conference how, the PED initially broke in 2014, and we have seen the highest levels since 2014 here in 2022. And his main takeaway was we're kind of doing it to ourselves. We're kind of breaking ourselves, having our farms break, which then, directly impacts, on the south side, really more on the piglet side than the south side, but still affects downstream mortality, livability, growth, etc.
Another audience question. How much can new technology and specific ag technology play a role in improving productivity?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this one, or a shot at this one too, Brad. So I'm really excited about this one, right? It's maybe the fact that I'm a scientist and driven with a scientific mind that really excites me about the prospects for new technology. But I think about this in terms of how we have traditionally used data to make management decisions about the pigs that we raise. Historically, we have used closeout data to do that. And of course, by the time the closeout data is available to us and we're able to look at it, it's a month or two after those pigs have already gone to market. That feed has already disappeared out of the bin. And so there's really nothing that we can do in terms of that specific group of pigs. The only thing we can do is prepare for the next group of pigs that's coming in. And so our management decisions have not always been that timely, just because of the nature of the data that we're looking at. But the ability to add load cells to grain bins, the ability to get real-time estimations of pig weights within a pen, using three-dimensional imaging, using facial recognition technology, using water monitors on your water lines to predict 3 days in advance of when you're going to have a flu outbreak. So those technologies are really exciting for me. I think they give us the ability to make management decisions in a much more strategic and timely way. And there's a lot of technologies that have sworn they were going to change the world for pork producers in specific, but ag in general, that never come to fruition. But there are a number of technologies that we are going to use. And let's face it, we are already a technology dense industry. Think about the barn ventilation ability to send notifications when we have a ventilation issue, the ability to monitor auger lines and things like that for feed delivery. So those things are coming, and I'm super excited about them. Maybe those folks that are in production are less so, but I'm certainly excited about them.
Brad, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so from a MetaFarms standpoint, it's definitely a challenge for us. Like Chris says, there's a lot of things out there that are kind of exciting. That from the pig counting to the ventilation. Well, from a MetaFarm standpoint, what do we work with? How can we help our customers, our end users, which, of the 10,000 users that we have that are using the MetaFarms platform, a large sum of those users are SLAT level users that need to have technology that's simple, easy to use, so that the decision makers, the veterinarians, that they have timely information. Like Chris says, that it's not closeout data, it's real-time information. About 5 years ago, MetaFarms created a mortality app, very simple, very easy to use, continuous login mortality app that has been implemented by over 80% of all of our users, or companies, should I say, of all the deads that come into MetaFarms come in through the mortality app. So then, then like with everything, as people start using it, they want to get more information in there. The next biggest one that we've been working really hard on is a lot of stuff around sustainability. It really focused, especially from a health standpoint, with water usage, and be able, like Chris said, that have that notification of, hey, pigs dropped in water usage. We have a health break coming up. It's time to take action, rather than, we just had X number of pigs die. Now what do we do?
So as we look to wrap up here, one last question for both of you. I'll start with you, Chris. What would be your final comments? What do you want to leave producers with? Your words of wisdom for today.
Yeah, I'm excited to work for the industry that does such a great job. And we really, we've focused on a few things today, mortality and feed efficiency. We've got work to do in those areas, but we've also got producers that are really, really hammering it and really doing a good job and producing pork in a very, global leading fashion. And so I'm excited about that. I also, again, encourage our listeners to visit our website, porkcheckoff.org/research, to find out more in-depth information. We have literally just scratched the surface of the information that's available in this final report. So,
Brad, what about you?
I think, Sarah, maybe you said it earlier, but you don't know what you don't know if you're not tracking and monitoring it. And, a lot of companies, do a really good job of tracking their information, having quality data coming out. And really, as we were working with the Pork Checkoff on how do we, what do we look at from the different metrics? I mean, MetaFarms platform, we have over 500 different metrics that you can track from sow to grow finish. So we wanted to really narrow that focus down to some real key performance indicators from how can, what can be tracked, and easily be able to make decisions off of those, rather than kind of getting into the weeds and where do I start. It's just really keeping it simple, and then making sure that we're tracking that information on a timely fashion, and really reviewing your data, whether you're a large producer or smaller producer, really just tracking that information, if not on a weekly basis, at least on a monthly basis, to see how am I doing, especially as potentially times get rougher with pig prices and high input costs in the future.
Track it, monitor it, and compare it, and make your decisions based on the data is what I'm hearing here today. So Chris and Brad, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
For all of you that are joining us, we thank you for being here. We thank those of you who posted questions. We always like that interactivity. That's terrific. We hope to see you back here on Thursday of this week at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, as we dive into the significance of the U.S. pork industry to the overall economy. Our Ann Hess will be hosting that session, and the guest is Holly Cook, staff economist with the National Pork Producers Council. Until then, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.